Give me the camera. Give it off, down.
Salutations, everyone, and welcome to another fine Southern Fried edition of Defending Your Movie. I'm your host, Alex Navarro, and this week, in honor of our screening room viewing of the Chevy Chase mystery comedy classic Fletch, I felt it prudent to take a bit of designated production time from those around me to make an impassioned plea on behalf of 1989's Fletch Lives. Now, upon its release, Fletch Lives was more or less dismissed as a pale imitation of the first film's near-perfect blending of a clever mystery plot with Chevy Chase's good-natured assholishness.
Try a transplant. Maybe the hair from your ass might make you smarter.
Which at the time of Fletch's debut in 1985 was still a welcome quality. But by the time '89 rolled around, audiences had pretty much grown tired of Chase as a leading comedic talent, especially in the wake of some of his less than thrilling projects of the time. Caddyshack 2, I'm looking in your direction. Admittedly, if you're the sort of filmgoer who might have gone into Fletch Lives simply expecting the exact same thing as the first movie, you undoubtedly would have been put off by the sequel's newfound dedication to screwball comedy over anything even remotely resembling a taut or intriguing mystery. Granted, some of that has to do with the fact that the first Fletch was directly based off one of Gregory McDonald's Fletch novels, whereas Fletch Lives was entirely the original concoction of hired screenwriters. At the very least, the two movies were directed by the same guy, Michael Ritchie. Fletch Lives finds Fletch still working as an investigative newspaper reporter, writing a column under the name Jane Doe. He's overworked, broke, and owes a pile of back alimony to his anonymously evil ex-wife.
You owe me $4,381 in back alimony.
What, I was married to you?
Fortune, however, seems to smile on the man when he learns he's inherited a sizable mansion in rural Louisiana. Fletch quits the newspaper biz to retire to his palatial estate, only to discover that it's not quite so palatial. Things go from merely problematic to kinda messed up when Fletch hooks up with the attorney overseeing the estate, only to wake up the next morning to a corpse. Fletch is the prime suspect, so of course he's got to try and clear his name. But things get a little more hectic when Fletch becomes aware that the elderly aunt had bequeathed the estate to him a mere 3 weeks prior to her death, originally planning to sell to a huckster televangelist and his Disney-sized ministry. And when a mysterious entity shows up wanting to buy Fletch's property for an absurd amount of money,
$250,000.
and people start taking random pot shots at him to put a little exclamation point on the whole go home sentiment,
Should I get out of town before sundown?
Fletch's mystery bone starts aching, and he sets about seeking out the truth. Now, the truth in this case isn't really terribly complicated. What few twists Fletch Lives does manage to weave around its storyline are really kind of all sorts of predictable.
You're right, he is many things. Former used car salesman, a confessed embezzler, your father.
By the same token, I think anyone who remembers the original Fletch having a particularly taut or labyrinthine mystery is maybe looking back with a touch of overly rosy nostalgia. These movies, while featuring airs of mysteriosity, are really about the comedy, and while it's not quite as consistently hysterical as its predecessor, Fletch Lives is a damn funny movie in its own right. Chase hasn't really lost a step here. He's every bit the snarky prick that you came to know and love in Fletch, and is certainly a great deal more on point here than he was in similarly arid movies.
Pilot's okay, I just saw him parachuting.
I love him, man.
The writing is still pretty snappy, and as Fletch goes through each of his trademark false identities.
My name? Peggy Lee Zorpa.
Henry Himmler.
Billie Jean King, Bug Buzzers.
Claude Henry.
Claude.
Claude or Claude is good. Henry.
Henry.
Smoot. SMMOTT.
Peter Lemonjello, your house is on fire.
Name's Ed. Ed Harley.
Elmer Gantry, Elmer Fudd Gantry.
Bob Lee. Bobby Lee. Bob Lee Schwartz. Schwartz. Second.
Chase delivers quite a few good sarcastic one-liners.
How about lunch at the In-N-Out Burger?
I'm not hungry.
All right, forget the burger. How about just the In-N-Out?
Now, I've seen people complain that Chase seems far less involved here than he was in the first film, but I frankly just don't see it. I mean, Chase always seems like he's kind of a step removed from the goings-on of every movie he's in, because that's just kind of his style. His leisurely dickishness is what makes the Fletch character work, and it works A-OK in the sequel. There's even shockingly solid supporting work from the likes of Arlie Ermey as the scuzzy Reverend Farnsworth.
I want you to send whatever you can afford. If you've got $1,000 in the bank, don't be afraid to send the whole $1,000. I need your money.
And beloved American treasure Hal Holbrook as a Southern lawyer so saintly in the Southernness that of course he's the bad guy. Now, neither of these characters are written with much depth, but Arlie Ermey does a pretty fine job transcending Farnsworth from just a base-level send-up of televangelist scumbags into a character that's actually pretty fun to watch.
Look out, you demons. Demons out! Hey.
And Holbrook is the sort of heavyweight actor who is maybe a little too heavyweight to be in this movie, but at the same time can turn just about any half-written character into a charming and pleasant performance. Yes, even when he's pointing a gun at our hero. I also have a great deal of affection for Fletch's effective sidekick in this whole endeavor, Calculus Entropy.
I be Calculus Entropy.
A vaguely racist caricature of a handyman that seems keenly aware of his own racist caricatureness, which may or may not be a cause for concern on Fletch's part.
You ever hear of the Emancipation Proclamation?
I heard something about it, but I don't recall exactly. It didn't get too much publicity around these here parts.
Calculus is played by Cleavon Little, who you may remember from the likes of Blazing Saddles and Vanishing Point. And Little does a fine job alternating between bouts of dialogue that really could only seem earnest coming from the pen of a prequel-era George Lucas, and also giving off the sly impression that Calculus knows a good bit more about the situation than he'd prefer to let on. Sadly, this was Little's last film, as he died a couple of years after its release.
Yes, sir. Peace and quiet.
Now, by no means would I call Fletch Lives a flawless film, apart from the positively hilarious Song of the South musical number parody.
Mr. Bluebird's on my...
Most of its production ranges between overstretched and non-existent. It's edited with sort of feverish quality, with random establishing shots popping up for absolutely no reason, and some establishing shots seemingly just flat out missing. The whole Bible Land amusement park gag is sadly underutilized, though the appearance of the flood sequence from the Universal Studios tour ride is kind of hysterical in its cheapness. And a big, expensive-looking chase between Fletch and a gang of motorcycle Nazis seems like more of a desperate attempt to plug some energy into the middle portion of the movie, sort of like the cop car chase scene in the original Fletch. That said, those issues don't really trump the fact that this is, simply put, a very, very funny movie. Nothing more, nothing less. Given the choice, of course I'll take Fletch 1 out of any day of the week, but my follow-up request would be to watch Fletch Lives immediately afterward. These movies complement each other more than well enough, and if you spent your years hating on Fletch Lives just because, it ain't quite like the first one, I think you owe it to yourself, society in general, and most certainly Chevy Chase, because Lord knows he's been through enough.
You've broken me.
To give it another shot.
Hope you're happy.
And that about does it for another edition of Defending Your Movie. As always, we welcome your comments on both Fletch Lives, as well as any of your favorite movies that you just can't bring other people to love right along with you. Once again, I've been Alex Navarro. Thanks for watching.